Diligence brings a level of excellence to
Mhm.
everything that we do. There's a phrase that we say in our house all the time. The cream rises to the top. We get milk from a farmer. The top of that milk jug is all cream. The cream is the best part. The best people rise to the top because of diligence, because of the
Yes.
excellence. And honestly, it's not that hard in today's world because most people are not diligent.
Well, ladies, welcome back to another Tea Time Chat with Brettnay and Sarah. Sarah, once again, it is such a joy to have you on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I had to say something different this time. I feel like I say the same thing every time. So thank you.
You just need to just record it, and here's our intro.
Yes.
We are actually going to dive into a topic today that has been requested by several people that listen. And so those are really fun. We're actually going to do a Q&A soon. So that'll be a really unique one. I like getting feedback in real time. Like,
Yeah.
what are you enjoying? What do you want to hear? I think we could probably have endless ideas of things to talk about. But it's always fun to get that input. Like, what do people, what are they wanting some insight on or conversation about? And so this is one of them. We will jump in to the conversation on diligence in just a minute. But I wanted to give people a little bit of a sneak peek of some of the conversations that we have penciled in as tentative ones to come. I think we would be completely remiss if we did not tackle some conversations on health, because that is a journey that God has really, really had you on.
Yeah.
I've been learning and growing a lot in that too, but kind of for some different motivational reasons than you have. So you've been doing a deep dive. So we have, honestly, I don't even know what those are going to be more you episodes. So I don't know what you have planned, but I know enough to know those are going to be phenomenal. We're going to have to do another book episode because I was thinking through all of these different genre and categories of books that we did not talk about in the first one. So I think we're going to have to do a part 2 on books and talk about some other books. I had someone request that we talk about fresh milled grains.
Oh,
Conversation.
that would be a good one. That's changed my life.
Yes. And that ties a lot into health. So maybe those health ones can kind of segue into the next.
Wow.
But I think that would be a great conversation. We're going to have to talk about homeschooling. We've got to squeeze that in. And I feel like 1 episode, 2 episodes, maybe, but there's only so many first Mondays in a year, Sarah. We just might have to extend this into 2027.
Yeah. We'll see.
Oh, goodness. No, we both have very busy, full lives, but it has been fun to get to do this. And I really appreciate you taking the time to set aside to have these conversations with me. And I think the listeners really enjoy it as well. But I will say, I'm looking at my kind of tentative schedule, and there are a few months that do not have anything penciled in. So if you have ideas of things that you would love to hear us chat about on the podcast, please, we're on Instagram. You can email me at nohighercallingpodcast@gmail.com. Send those ideas over, and we will see where the year takes us. But today's conversation, I think this is one more, Sarah, that you have kind of studied out and just shared how God's been working in your heart in regards to this. It is something that he's definitely been teaching me to, even recently, in some things that I've read. I'm like, oh, jot that down, jot that down. That comes back to diligence. And I knew we were talking about this. But I think it's something that so many people struggle with. We've talked about living a life you love and having a right mindset. And people are like, okay, I want that. But it's hard to put in the work to get it. It's hard to find the diligence to get it. So that's going to be a conversation that we dive into today. And I think you've titled this, "There's No Hack for Diligence." And I loved that, but I was also like, oh man, really? There's a hack for everything.
Yeah, I know. It's a tough one to swallow
Mm,
because at the end of the day, you just got to do it, you know?
yeah,
So, yeah, it's it is something that the Lord has had to deal with me about because, hate to say it, but I am lazy. And I think probably a lot of people are nodding their heads and agreeing, saying, yes, I am too. I'm so glad she said that out loud. Because, it's funny because actually just today, as I was walking on the treadmill and kind of thinking through the just different things about diligence. And I was thinking, well, and I was praying over this, and I'm like, Lord, I feel like such a hypocrite. I feel like such a hypocrite talking about this because it's a constant battle. It's
mhm,
not like the title, There is no hack for diligence. It's not one and done. It's
yeah.
something that we're working on every day, and it's something that we fail in every day. And it's
Mm.
just, it's one of those things that we grow in. It's
Well,
not
and I think
going.
I've shared so much on the podcast. What I talk about is not stuff that I have mastered. I'm talking about it
Exactly.
because it's literally in real time overflow. This is not something I'm coming to you saying, "We've figured out diligence. Here's how
Yeah.
you can figure it out." No, we're struggling with diligence, and this is what God is teaching us along the way as we are trying to grow in this area. So, that's where we're coming from.
Yeah, for sure. Because it's something that we're working. In fact, our word of the school year for, I guess it would be 25-26 here in America, right? Yes. Okay, we had a year change and it's March already. I'm like, what year is it? So yes, so 25 it's funny because I'm saying it's March already, but this is going out in months away, isn't it? So
Yes,
these people are gonna be
you're
like,
dating
what
us,
in the
Sarah.
world is your problem? Okay. So just to clarify, my years are confused because we're still at the beginning of 2026. However, putting that aside, that's not a big deal. Just our year for the 25-26 school year has been diligence because homeschooling, you can really, really be lazy in. And that is really where I started getting convicted about this entire idea because I thought, we have such a short amount of time. We do not get this endless time of educating our children. And there's
Yeah,
so many things that I want them to learn. And yet here I am wasting away the days. And I am sorry, but a child cannot get educated by playing outside all day, every day. Playing outside is very important, but it does not teach them math. It doesn't teach
mhm,
them Shakespeare. It doesn't teach them English. It doesn't teach them writing. It doesn't teach them how to speak.
yeah,
And I just got so convicted because I thought, and again, we were not schooling like that. We weren't doing outside. But I think my point is there is this lackadaisical approach to life that it's like, oh, it'll all turn out. It's okay.
mhm,
And it's like, no, we have got to get down to business. We need to make a plan. We need to put forth effort because at the end of the day, it's not going to happen if we are not making it happen.
mhm,
So, and that again, it was okay, the education. I want to have all of this, like we were talking about earlier, in the mother culture episode. I want to have an enriching school year. But if I'm struggling just to get reading, writing, and arithmetic in, there's a problem. We should be able to include more than just that. So what's the issue? What am I doing wrong with my time? What are our priorities? Okay, if I have to shorten math from an hour and a half to 45 minutes, let's do that. And
mhm,
and that's the thing is figuring out, oh, there's a pain point here. Let's figure it out. And
yeah,
that's the thing. We don't want to take the time to figure it out. All right, so let's just start from the beginning because I'm kind of getting ahead of myself a little bit. So, diligence, if you look it up in the Webster's 1828, he defines diligence as study and application to business, constant in effort or exertion to accomplish what is undertaken, industrious, careful. And a couple words stick out to me there: steady, constant, exertion. There's a showing up that must be done. There's a putting forth of effort. And I think in the age that we live in, we expect, oh, everything needs to be handed to us on a silver platter. And that is not biblical. And even if our government does it, it's not right. And we need to be very careful about us not coming to life with this give me attitude, I deserve this, and also training our children not to come that way either. So, but what is the opposite of diligence? This is easy. Obviously, the opposite of being diligent is laziness. That hurts. Okay. If you're not diligent, you're lazy. Okay. Let me rephrase that. If I am not diligent, I am lazy. That hurts. I don't like that. Guess what? I don't want to be lazy. So I need to take that feeling and make it, okay, let's do something about it. Idleness. We hear that word all the time in the Bible. That's the opposite of diligence. Slothfulness, slack. You hear that phrase, pick up the slack, pick up the slack. Come on. As a coach, when I used to coach girls, years ago now, oh my goodness, early 20s, I think. I was a volleyball, track and field, that kind of a coach. And okay, we're using that word, you pick up the slack. And I look around at my home. Oh my goodness, I probably shouldn't even say this out loud. I'm just thinking in real time here. I'm like looking around at my home thinking, oh my word.
Slack.
Yes, I need to pick up the slack. I've got this falling and this falling. And again, as mothers, we have a lot of things on our plates. We're trying to carry a lot of different plates, actually. Wearing a lot of different hats, however you want to say it. But are the priorities, is there slack there? And it's convicting to me. So just this idea of seeing something accomplished to the end. Have you ever done a house project and you're like, if I can just get 90% of this done. Okay, look, I am literally staring at a bedroom with no, what is that called? The baseboards. We didn't complete the project to the end. And that kind of stuff that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Now, I'm not one to put baseboards up myself. I probably could, but I'm just saying it's just a perfect example. I'm just sitting here looking at it like, okay, there we go. But when you start like a painting project or something and you're like, okay, I'm going to paint these walls, but I actually don't feel like getting the trim done right now. So I'll save that for later. And then 5 years later, you finally get around to doing the trim. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. So seeing something accomplished to the end. And again, if you have things that are not finished, I'm not calling you lazy. Okay, please don't take it in that way. I'm just saying, like, these are things I'm seeing in my own house, that just taking something and accomplishing it to the end. And hopefully that will give you some, like, the next time you start a project, saying, okay, let me get this done. And obviously, I'm not saying in one day. Obviously, projects are, they take time. But seeing it accomplished to the end, that is the idea of diligence. Showing up until it's done. Not quitting early, not giving up, not wasting our days. That's another word, wasteful. That's another good word that would be the opposite of diligence. And here is where in one of the recent episodes, we talked about bringing a level of excellence to our work. Diligence brings a level of excellence to everything that we do. There's a phrase that we say in our house all the time: the cream rises to the top. We get milk from a farmer. The top of that milk jug is all cream. The cream is the best part. The best people rise to the top because of diligence, because of the excellence. And honestly, it's not that hard in today's world, because most people are not diligent and most people are not excellent. And I'm not saying that to put people down, but I'm saying that to say, Christians, let's get a hold of ourselves and actually start putting some effort into what we do, because as Christians, we're called to excellence. So it just brings, diligence just brings an automatic leveling up that
Mhm.
most people in today's world don't have. And I'm not saying let's do it to be better than everybody else. I'm not saying that,
Yeah.
but I'm saying as Christians, let's bring excellence to our lives. Let's be an example to the world, the lost world. Who, if you are on a job, who should be the best worker on a job? Okay, and I know a
Mm.
lot of us are probably staying home, but if you are a Christian, you should be the best worker on the job. You
Yeah.
should be the one that's showing up, that's going, you know, going above and beyond. People can count on you. That should
Mhm.
be you. And my
I know
husband
our
says,
pastor. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, my husband says that all the time, as you know, as being on the job, and not as pride or anything like that, but he's the
Mhm.
one that can be counted on. And he comes home
Yeah.
and he's like, oh, these people drive me nuts. They don't know how to work. But Christians should know how to work because they're
Yeah.
Christians.
Our pastor in the States had a quote that he would always say, choosing the high road or taking the high road is not choosing between the good and the bad, but the good and the best,
Yeah.
pursuing that excellent life. And it's interesting. I guess I've always kind of been drawn to people who are very intentional and purposeful with their lives, but I've noticed that a little more recently. I recently watched a CEO of a major corporation sharing about his habit of journaling. I watched a YouTube thing on it. I've been listening to some podcasts by just some very highly motivated, intentional people. And it really clicked with me. I told Simeon the other day, I was like, I'm really inspired by people who live intentionally. But
Me
thinking
too.
about some of those things that I have listened to or watched recently, they have diligence. And then it's not something that came naturally, like we said. It is something that they have worked to develop as a habit of their character. But now they are able to speak with some authority of being people that are leading ministries or have children who are following in those footsteps, who admire their parents because of these qualities, or people that are way high up in the business world.
Mhm.
And, you mentioned that as a whole in culture, this is lacking. It
Yes.
is much more common for people to just sit back and kind of let life happen to them than to charge ahead and know, how can I live this rich, fulfilling life? But you're right, as believers, God has come. I love that verse. Not that we might just have life, but that we might have it more abundant. That wasn't a perfect quote, but that's the gist. And I think, we've been talking to our kids. We are doing the Clay and Sally Clarkson's 24 Family Ways. That's what we're going through in our family devotions right now.
Those are
And we
good.
just finished, we are diligent to complete a task promptly and thoroughly when asked. And now we take initiative to do all our own work without needing to be told. But we've had these conversations. Hey, one day, God's probably going to have you working a job somewhere. Are you going to be the best? What does it look like to be the best? In whatever pursuit of life God has us in. And, you were talking about earlier with diligence, seeing the task all the way through. Funny enough, I don't struggle with that. So if I start a task, it will be completed. And I'm not saying that in a prideful way, because actually, more often than not, that is a fault in and of itself, because I'm willing to put priorities aside because I
Yes.
this task.
Yeah.
So I've got my own problem there. But my problem is not with necessarily seeing it through as starting.
Mhm.
Sometimes starting is the hardest thing when it comes to diligence. I know I want my life to look like this. I know I want this habit. I know that if I could just get up early, go to bed earlier, if I could work out, if I could eat healthy, then, it's going to have this domino effect on my life that's positive, and that's what I want. But in order for that to happen, in order for me to wake up and go walking every morning, I have to get up and make the decision to go walking. And oftentimes that's where diligence gets me, is I'm like, oh, but once I
Mhm.
make the decision, then I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I did this. This is rewarding. This isn't near as daunting as I thought it was. But I
Mhm.
think for a lot of us, it's just taking that step to say, I'm doing it. I'm showing
Yeah.
up. I'm here. So
Yeah.
that's just personally where diligence smacks me in the face sometimes.
Yeah, it is. It's hard to start, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but there's a lot of mental blocks that we have to get over.
Roadblocks.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah. So before we get into that conversation real quick, I do want to just bring some Bible into this, because obviously Bible is always our foundation. And I think the point of all of these episodes that we do is just, look, all of this practical stuff is so important, but guess what? Its foundation is on the Bible. So what are we to be diligent in? Ecclesiastes 9:10 is one of my favorites about diligence. We're to be diligent in everything. Ecclesiastes 9:10 says, whatsoever thy hand findeth to do, do it with thy might. And honestly, that verse is so inspiring to me, because I can be diligent in something as simple as washing dishes, or changing a diaper, or vacuuming the floor, or just whatever the piddliest thing that you can think of. You can be brushing my hair, putting on my makeup. I can be diligent in those things, whatever your hand finds to do. Another thing is seeking God. This is so important. This is where it begins, right here. If you struggle with being diligent, here's my question for you. Are you diligent about being in God's word? Are you diligent about having a relationship with God? Because I can tell you, you probably won't be diligent in life with, I'm saying the godly kind of diligence. I'm not saying the climb the ladder kind of diligence, but you will not have that godly kind of diligence if you cannot even be diligent in seeking him. Jeremiah 29:13 says, and ye shall seek me and find me when you shall search for me with all your heart. That's where the diligence comes in. And we've said this before, but showing up to read your Bible and checking it off the list. Okay, I got that done for today. I got my Christian duty done for today. Tomorrow, oh, I got it done again. That's not building a relationship with Christ. It's seeking, searching with all your heart. That's the diligence. Deuteronomy 4:29. But if from thence thou shalt seek the Lord thy God, thou shalt find him, if thou seek him with all thy heart and with all thy soul. He adds another level. Hebrews 11:6. He is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. So how awesome that all of these things come with a promise.
Yeah.
If you are diligent, you will have a reward. This is your reward. If you seek me diligently, you'll find me. He is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. I love that. And the neat thing is, most of these things have promises. If you are diligent about fill in the blank, here's your reward. Another thing we need to be diligent about is keeping our hearts. Proverbs 4:23 says, keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. Think about what that verse is saying. Out of your heart are the issues of life. Everything is stemming. So the heart there is talking about our mind. So what are we thinking of? We have to guard our mind and our hearts around everything, the work that we have in front of us, the thoughts, bringing our thoughts into captivity, just everything that enters our minds. We need to guard our heart with all diligence. If you want to be diligent, diligence comes from the thoughts that are in your heart. So be diligent about your mind. Think those things. Okay, I want to be diligent. How can I be diligent today with the tasks that I have today? Be diligent in your thoughts around your tasks for the day. And that's the first step of being diligent in your day. And then training our children. Deuteronomy 6:5-7 says, and thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thine heart. Notice where this starts. It starts with me. Thou, the parent, love the Lord thy God with all thine heart, with all thy soul, with all thy might. And these words, the words that I just said, which I command thee this day, shall be in thine heart, and thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children. And if you go on, it talks about throughout the day, when you're sitting, when you're standing, when you're walking along the way. So just diligently. Guess what? That takes some effort. That takes some thought. That takes some planning. We're going to read this for family devotions. We're going to do this for family devotions. And also taking advantage of when a conversation comes up. okay, Lord, this is a perfect opportunity. Please give me a verse or something that I could use in this conversation. And then infusing God's word into your conversation,
Mhm.
bringing it back to God, pointing your children's hearts always towards Christ. That takes a diligence. Okay, here's one very practical: what we eat. Proverbs 23, 1-2 says, when thou sittest to eat with a ruler, consider diligently what is before thee, and put a knife to thy throat if thou be a man given to appetite. Now, we Christians, we like to talk about self-control in every area. We got to have self-control with the phone, and we got to have self-control with the temper, and we got to have self-control with this. But nobody be talking about self-control about what you eat. Let's not bring that up. We do not need
Don't
to
touch my potluck.
yeah. So it's really important. The Bible talks about, hey, when you sit down to eat, now I know it's talking about here with the ruler, because the ruler has all kinds of dainties, but we can show up to a potluck with all kinds of dainties. And guess what? We need to consider diligently what is before us and put a knife to our throat. We can do that in our own home. If we have this huge meal, we don't need 2 plates of food. One plate should be sufficient. I'm not saying if you have 2 plates of food, it's wrong. I'm just saying
Yeah.
we need to think. We need to take the time to think about this. Honestly, Americans in general eat way more calories than what we need to be consuming, which is why a lot of us deal with being overweight, because it actually is about calories, and calories in and calories out are important. And if you eat too many calories, you're going to gain weight. And Americans in general, just because of our abundance here in our country, which the Lord has given us, and it's wonderful, but because of that abundance, we have to think about what we eat more.
Yeah.
We're not dealing with famine like they were a couple hundred years ago. We don't have to worry about that. And so we just need to be diligent about considering what we're putting into our bodies for health reasons too, not just for, oh, I'm eating too much, but just taking care of our bodies in general. And then another one, okay, there's so many, but here's just one to kind of finish off this list is the state of our home and our finances. Proverbs 27:23 says, be thou diligent to know the state of thy flocks, and look well to thy herds. Now, probably a lot of us do not have flocks. Maybe we have a flock of chickens or something, but
I have a flock of children.
yes, there you go. But we need to be diligent. It takes some thought. It takes some effort to know, where are our finances? Where is our home? Where are our children, as far as where do I want them to be? So we need to know the state of our homes. The Titus 2 verse, verse 4 or 5, talks about women being keeper of the home. And that word keeper specifically means in the Greek a guard. Well, you have to know what's going on in order to guard. You have to know, okay, who's coming in, who's going out, what's happening. So just taking that idea of just being a guard, knowing the state of fill in the blank. We have, like we said, we have a lot of hats we have to wear, and there's a lot of things going on in our lives, and just being able to have the capacity to manage all of those different things. Sometimes it's easy to just let different things go, and we need to bring it back in, be diligent about each one of those priorities. And priority is a key, I think, in this conversation, which we'll talk about later. But do you have anything to add, any verses or anything? I'm just talking away over here.
No, I mean, I think that's great. And, I mean, the first one that you gave, Ecclesiastes 9:10, whatsoever thy hand findeth to do. I thought in our kitchen, we have the verse in Corinthians, whether therefore you eat or drink or whatsoever you do all to the glory of God. This really comes to stewardship God has given us. And then you went to list all of these things that God has given us to steward well. And if we're going to steward them well, diligence needs to come into play here. It is required that a man be found faithful, right? Faithful in what? Well, I think one of those things is faithful in diligently stewarding these things well. So I think that was great.
Yeah. Another thing that I find very interesting, I'm actually really excited to talk about this, to kind of chat about this, but
yeah,
why is diligence so hard in 2026? Why is it so hard? Because 200 years ago, you had lazy people here and there. You know, you had your drunks on the street or whatever. But if you like, it seems like just from reading history and things like that, it seems like your typical person was a very hard worker. So when I just kind of dwell on that question, why does diligence feel so hard today? And the answer, and that I'm exploring, that's probably not the right way to put it, but I wonder, is it because we have too much time on our hands because of convenience? And
Have
I say
you
this
read Eve in Exile by Rebecca
years and
Marshall, I believe?
years ago. It's been a long time. I need to revisit that.
It is so, so good. But she talks about this, not specifically in regards to diligence, but she follows history. And I might be stealing your thunder because I see your notes and I know where you're headed. But she was talking about how from the beginning of human history up until really recent, um, people didn't have a choice of diligence. If you weren't diligent to get up and work your land and mend your clothes and
Yeah.
tend your garden, you would die. Your family would die. You would suffer. It wasn't a choice of, do I feel like getting up and doing this today? You did
Right.
it. Whereas we started having this shift, I believe it was about in the 50s, where modern convenience came into play. And a lot of that was with World War II. The men were away fighting. The women had to step up into roles that they never had before in the workplace. And so it was all of the sudden a surge of modern conveniences because all of a sudden women were juggling a full-time job and being the homemaker. And don't get me wrong, like the other day I was washing dishes and do you ever just stop and thank God for things that you're like, that was really random, but I am so thankful for this.
Yes.
Well, I was washing dishes and I just looked down at my faucet, which I actually don't really like. It's terrible. It doesn't stand tall. It's always banging my pots. But I thanked God for the running water that was coming out of my faucet.
Yeah.
When I just really was hit with the reality of, I think we had watched a news article. We love World Watch. We had watched a news article about these children that have to walk 4 miles to get their one little bucket of water. And I just thought, thank you, Lord, that I can just turn on the tap and the water flows. But
Yeah.
with all of these conveniences and just such a quick society, it has removed a lot of that motivation for work and also a lot of the joy and fulfillment that came from it. Yes, people, we finished reading Little House on the Prairie recently, okay? I loved the show as a kid. I've never read the books until I'm reading it now. So
Oh
it
my
caught me
goodness.
completely off guard. I'm sorry if I'm spoiling it for somebody. But I couldn't believe after reading the whole Little House on the Prairie book and all that they put into building their house and Paul surprising Mom with the window panes that were such an extravagant splurge and then planting their garden, they had to uproot and leave. I was just like, they're leaving after all of that work. But when you read that, there's such a sense of purpose and joy and satisfaction found in just them making a life for themselves. Whereas
Yeah.
we don't really have that. We don't have that drive. If something doesn't work out, okay, well, I'll go buy something else. And I think it's removed a lot of this need for diligence.
Hmm.
And so because, while on one hand we say, oh, we just don't have time, on the other hand, we have more time for idleness and
Right.
self than any other point in human history. And we just aren't choosing to spend it
Right.
wisely. Honest, you said this earlier. No, let me correct my language. I do not always choose to spend it wisely.
Right. Right. Yeah, I like to use the phrase convenience is killing us because I really feel like it really truly has. And again, you said taking away the joy and things out of working, but can you imagine just talking to Ma Ingalls and just telling her, Oh, I'm so overwhelmed. I have so much laundry. I mean, I know we have these machines and you just throw the clothes in there and you add the soap and then you press this button and it's done. And I just have so much to do. And just
I
like,
actually have to get it out of the dryer and fold it.
yes. So just taking that into perspective and
Yeah.
thinking, why am I complaining about this again? Because I could be down at the river scrubbing my one dress that I own, and I honestly, that's part of it. I think we'll get to this a little bit later, but having less stuff is also part of it. But because we have convenience, we have way more stuff because, we have all of this time. And now all of our time is spent moving around these piles. And it's like, those piles are not important. Let's get rid of the piles. Let's get rid of the stuff and focus on what is most important in our life. One thing I like, a phrase I like is, what is easy to do is easy not to do. So we can put off, say laundry. Okay. I like to do laundry every single day, but there have been times where I've put it off because I'll just get it, Saturday or whatever when I'm home in the afternoon and I'll have I'll have some time. And then when Saturday comes around, it's this huge chore that I complain about. Whereas if I would just be diligent in doing the thing every day and keeping up with it, it wouldn't become this huge task. And you mentioned earlier, but convenience has stripped away joy from working. God placed work in the Garden of Eden before the fall. Adam was supposed to dress the garden. And have you ever thought about that before? I'm like, I wonder how he dressed the garden if the earth was perfect. I wonder what he had to do. For real.
Yeah.
Like, that's really a genuine question. I can't wait to ask when I get to heaven. But there was work of some sort before. Now, there wasn't the weeds and the different things, but there was something they had to do to the garden. Naming the animals, I mean, that's another responsibility. Anyways, but work was a joy. It was a part of life. They were not to sit around all day and do nothing. How boring of a life that is. So the work was there and it was supposed to be joyful. It was supposed to give you a sense of value. But the convenience has taken the joy away from work. And there is something to be said about finding satisfaction in a job well done, prepping convenience meals. Okay. Not saying it's a sin. However, there is not joy in taking a frozen meal. What are the frozen meals called these days? Like Big Daddy or something?
Hungry man.
Hungry man. Yes.
Might as well be Big Daddy.
I don't even know. Okay. So Hungry Man, like there's no, you know what I used to get ages ago? Lean cuisine. That was my thing. Lean cuisine.
Yeah.
It's
Those
healthy.
are the healthy ones, right?
Yeah, it's healthy.
As a kid, you could get the Great Start breakfasts. Oh, my brother and I used to love to get the Great Start. It probably wasn't a great start.
You're ruining my point about joy. We're talking about joy being stripped away.
That was an immature child who did not know better.
Funny. Okay. Anyways, I'm just saying, like, as a homemaker and a cook or whatever, there's a difference between grabbing a convenience meal out of the freezer, throwing it in the microwave for 2 minutes, and actually putting some effort and creativity and love into the meal that you're making for your family. And the thing is, when you take the beauty away from the work, you also take the umph. I don't know the right word, but you just don't feel like doing it. When you take the beauty of the work away, you don't want to do it. You don't want to work. It's really interesting to me because our convenience, and this is not like a rant about we need to go back to 200 years ago, But we have got to figure out how to bring that joy back into work.
Mhm.
And that's kind of the whole point of this. We have lost the joy in work, so we don't want to do it. And at the bottom line is we've got to pick our hard, because work is hard, but also doing 18 loads of laundry in one day is hard. So you have to decide, okay, I can either put the heart in of the diligence every day. Let's get it done every day, showing up, being faithful. I can do that kind of hard. Or I can do the hard that is really just miserable and putting actually more work on myself because I was not diligent throughout the week. One of those hards feels good and fulfilling, whereas the other hard just feels like misery. I love Proverbs 13:19 is probably one of my favorite verses about this. It says, "The desire accomplished is sweet to the soul." When you have a job that needs to be done, there is biblical words that go with that feeling that you feel when you're done. It's sweet to the soul. This is interesting, but there was what's her name? The Australian health lady, Barbara O'Neill, that's what her name is.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I was listening to her recently, talking about this idea of hard, and she actually shared a poem called we Choose Your Hard, I think. And I thought, this is so good, I'm sharing this because it just goes so perfectly along with what we were talking about. So marriage is hard, divorce is hard. Choose your hard. Obesity is hard, being fit is hard. Choose your hard. Being in debt is hard, being financially disciplined is hard. Choose your hard. Communication is hard, not communicating is hard. Choose your hard. Life will never be easy. It will always be hard, but we can choose our hard. Pick wisely.
Mm.
I love it because it is true. Life is hard, but when we show up diligently, we actually make it enjoyable and even a little bit easier on ourselves in the long run. We have, I don't know, we have to figure out 200 years ago, I would have spent my time churning butter for 2 hours and washing clothes for a whole day. Just the few items that they had, just scrubbing them on the little washboards that they had.
Mm-hmm.
So what do I do? How do I bring that joy back in? How do we bring that hard work back in? There's got to be a way, because the Bible told us, as we mentioned in that verse earlier, whatsoever thy hand findeth to do, do it with all thy might. So even if our hands are finding simple things to do, we can still be diligent about it. It may not be going down to the river and washing clothes. It may literally just be moving the clothes from the washer to the dryer. And guess what? Now I have all of this extra time. What can I do with it? And you said this a little bit earlier, but diligence, spiritually speaking, diligence is simply just faithfulness. And faithfulness comes from having a right relationship with the Lord. At the root, and this hurts, but at the root of our laziness is simply disobedience to Christ. It's disobedience, because Christ says, show up, work hard, be diligent, and we're lazy, we're disobedient. And then on a practical note, there are so many things that we can do to add diligence into our lives. One is learning how to prioritize. We need to prioritize our main things, right? I mean, we've talked about this so many times, but number one, our relationship with the Lord. Number two, our husband. Number three, our children. And 4 and 5, may be different for different people, but health is a big thing for me. And serving others, whether that's church family, neighbors, things like that. Those are our relationship. In fact, the Bible tells us our relationship, tells us our priorities. Love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, soul, and mind. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Those are the two big ones. But then after that, when it comes down to day in, day out, we have to say, okay, here's all the things that needs to be done. What are the priorities for today? Yes, I need to be hitting on all those top ones. I need to be having my devotion, spending time with the Lord. I need to be checking in with my husband, spending time with him, sending him a text. Whatever it is that you do to have that little bit of connection with your husband, connection with your children, connection, sending a text to a friend, letting them know, praying for your friends, whatever it is. You have those main things, but then there's actually real life stuff that needs to happen in the day. The laundry, the food, the grocery shopping, whatever it is. What's a priority for today? I find myself so many times coming to a point where I am so overwhelmed. I have so much stuff to do, and so nothing gets done because I'm overwhelmed. We have to learn to say, okay, what actually needs to be done right now? What is important that has to be done today? Because what happens is we waste our time because we have this extra time that we talked about early on. See, because back then it was like, get up and get busy. Get up and get busy or we die. You get up and we make the food, we make the bread because we die if we don't have it. Get up and get out and do the garden because we're not going to have food for the winter if we don't have it. Our life is not like that. And we have this extra time. But there is this lifeless, it might not be necessarily like real death where we're actually dying physically, but there could be like this spiritual, mental death, this depression, when we do not learn how to be diligent. Is that making sense? I feel like I did not explain that well, but there's just this lack of joy in our day and age, 2026. It might not be I'm dying, it like literally, but it's I am depressed because I'm not working.
Yeah. Well, coming back to that book that I read, Even Exile. So she talked about how women were stepping into the workforce during World War II. So home convenience was on the rise. But she talked about the transition then going into the 60s and 70s post-war era, where the men were coming back and filling those career roles. And not all women were leaving the workforce, but the women that were going back to home went back to a very different home. They went back to a home where things were not as laborious as they were before. So it was really interesting. She kind of started talking a little bit about the rise in depression medication and some of those drugs that were that just kind of numbing, because women all of a sudden lacked that deep purpose that they had. They had so much time, where sometimes we look back at history and think, oh, it was so idyllic in the 50s, like that's the era of the housewife. But she kind of pulls back the curtain on that and shows us every generation has its sin issues. But one of the struggles in that generation was women stepped back into a role of home that was so much easier than it had ever been before. They had so much time that they were not used to having. And they were finding that there was that emptiness, there was that void, that they turned to other things to try to dull or numb or remove, other than asking some of these questions. Okay, how do I bring diligence back in? Yes, life looks different now. In a lot of ways, we said we're thankful for that. But that doesn't mean that we should just kind of muddle our way through our days, wasting time. The Bible says we are to redeem the time. So because God has given us an extra measure of time and margin that they didn't have 200 years ago, it also means that there's a level of stewardship there. There are things that we can accomplish if we have a diligent, faithful spirit that they would not have had time for.
Exactly.
How many years ago?
Exactly. Yeah. I had this written down because it was so convicting to me, but we are so blessed with the conveniences that we have. And we live in a time period where we literally could have the cleanest homes ever, the healthiest and most delicious meals ever, the best relationship with the Lord than anyone has ever had. the most well-behaved children, because we just have this extra time with them to spend together, the highest education possible, because our convenience gives us that extra time to study. And however, we don't have time to do anything that matters.
Mm.
It's so crazy to me. It does not make sense, does it?
I
It
think
doesn't make
Satan
sense.
does not want us to be diligent because he knows if believers are serious about being diligent, things are going to be accomplished for the gospel's sake. Instead of being diligent, he wants us to be distracted. He cannot
Exactly.
take our salvation from us, but he can keep us distracted and focused on lesser, secondary, not the priorities, keep us spinning our wheels, and that keeps us from pursuing this intentional life and all that God has called us to.
Exactly. And it's such a blessing that we are able to be intentional. Is kind of a more modern word. And I really believe it's because we have the time to be intentional.
Mm.
200 years ago, they were intentional, but I don't think intentional was the word. I think it was diligent. I just got to get up and do.
I love what was the
Now,
word you used earlier? You used the word industrious. I liked that.
yes, yes.
Mm.
So, but I think industrious, I think, has the idea of being intentional as well, because it's like it's industry. I'm like looking for things to do. I don't know. I don't
So
know. It's
maybe it
just
was essential in the past. It was a
yes,
non-negotiable.
yes. And now we have so much time that our baggage is mental baggage. I really think we're dealing with a lot of mental things, as far as, and I don't mean like depression and this, that, and the other. I don't mean like that. I mean, we have so much time that we get bogged down by trying to figure out what we're going to do. And I think that's
Mm.
where priorities are really important, to realize, okay, boom, 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 boom. These are my priorities. This is where my time is going.
Mhm.
So just some just random practical stuff. Yes, priorities. Learning how to prioritize things throughout your day, eliminate decision fatigue. Ways you
Yes.
can eliminate decision fatigue: have less stuff. Okay, if you have only 7 outfits, you don't have to choose out of 50. You only have 7 outfits. Okay. I need to follow my own advice, by the way. I don't
I
only
do
have
not
7
have
outfits.
7, but
That's just the easiest example I could think of. But just having less stuff.
yes.
Another thing that is huge that I love talking about on Faithful and Flourishing is having systems that basically run your home on autopilot.
Mhm.
So this, and what I mean by this is that is helping us to eliminate decision fatigue. One of my
Yes.
systems is laundry. We do laundry every day except Sundays. Tuesdays is towels. Friday is bedding. And guess what? It happens without thinking.
Mhm.
This morning, the towels went in the wash. I switched them over to the dryer. Later this evening, I'm going to end up folding them because I haven't gotten to it yet. Or not folding them, but hanging them back up. I'm sorry. But just systems like that. Dinner. One of the systems that we have for food, for grocery pickup, I like to pick up my groceries. I do go in sometimes, but as soon as we run, if we are faithful about this, as soon as we run out of an ingredient, my daughter will tell me, "Hey, mom, we're out of such and such," and I'm like, "Add it to the list."
Mhm.
Onto my Walmart app or whatever, Kroger or whatever.
Yeah.
Add it straight to the phone, to the grocery cart, to the cart. That's what I'm
Mhm.
trying to say. Just little micro habits like that makes everything so there's not decision fatigue. Because honestly, it's way easier as soon as I run out of something, or as soon as I notice something is running out, it's way easier to add it to my list right then
Yes.
than to take an hour on grocery shopping day staring at my cabinets being like, what am I out of? And
Mhm.
then later needing it for a recipe and I don't have it. That is just eliminating decision fatigue. And it's like, isn't that something silly to be diligent in? I mean, no, because whatsoever thy hand findeth to do, do it with thy might.
Yeah.
So, just something as simple as that, just setting up little systems, micro habits. And you mentioned this word, non-negotiables. I actually have that. What are your non-negotiables? Number one, relationship with the Lord, devotions, reading God's word, praying, non-negotiable.
Mhm.
On normal days, non-negotiable is homeschooling. That's a huge motherhood thing for me. It's not just school. That's your relationship with your children.
Yeah.
There's just so many different things like that. And then we find I actually still have time. You and I, as busy as we are with our family and our ministries, we are here podcasting because we have a little bit of
There was
margin.
margin. Yeah.
And so being able to take that little bit of margin and using it for the Lord, how awesome is that? It's so exciting. We started a women's ministry and teaching and all that. It's on my heart. It's something that's just really, really, really special. When I was 20 something, early 20s, I had a friend who was, I don't know, she's probably 20 years older than me. We always walked together, and she asked me, where do you see yourself in 10 years? And I remember telling her, I would love, and I'm in my early 20s, and I have no idea what I'm doing with my life other than I was getting ready to have a baby. Okay. But I was a teacher, but like, where do you see yourself in 10
Yeah.
years? That wasn't something I ever just like stopped and considered. I was just in the grind doing the thing every day, but apparently I had enough wherewithal to answer, I would love to somehow influence women. I don't know if I don't know what that would look like, but I would love to be able to teach women someday. I don't know.
Mhm.
And the crazy thing is, here we are, however many years later, I won't say how many years later, but just simple little things like that the Lord has allowed. And apparently he put that desire on my heart. But guess what? That couldn't be done if there wasn't margin. And I mean, Ma Ingalls wasn't out, podcasting or whatever that era of podcast. She wasn't out teaching the women. And I know
Yeah.
that there were pastors' wives and things like that back then. However, I mean, honestly, a lot of their work still centered around the home, back
Mhm.
then. But we have that margin. So fill it with something that is worth something. Fill it with
Yeah.
something. I mean, I would pray about it. See what God wants you to do. There's nothing wrong with having a hobby. You can use your hobby. I mean, we were talking about this a while ago. One of our hobbies, more so my daughter, but with the freshly milled flour, has become baking. I mean, there's some good stuff coming out of our kitchen lately with freshly milled. It's so delicious. One of the best things to do is share it with people. It
Mhm.
takes time, but you can bless people with that. I mean,
Yeah.
I have a friend who loves sewing. She sews quilts and things for people, blankets. There's just so many things that we can do with our spare time. And you might think, well, I don't have time for that. But actually, if we just put the phone down, okay, because that is a huge pet peeve because people struggle with phone. And
Mhm.
it's okay to say that out loud because the people who made your phone made it with the intention to make you struggle with it. It literally is made to be addicting. And so we have got to figure out how to put the phone down, have little rules around the phone. Don't touch it from 12 to 8 or from
Mhm.
whatever it is, from 8 to 12, whatever your
Yeah.
rule is around the phone. I use the Opal app. I love the Opal app because it I literally cannot get on my phone after 8:30 at night. And actually it's locked after 8:30 and it's locked before 8 it's locked before 8:30 in the morning too. So I can't get so when I'm having my devotions and things like that, I can't
Mhm.
get on Instagram, I can't get on things like that. And same thing after 8:30. And it drives me nuts sometimes because I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to post this to Instagram." And I'm like, I'm locked out. I literally can't get on it. But
Yeah.
it's so good because it blocks those sacred times, the time
Mhm.
with the Lord, a little bit of um homeschooling time, my time with my husband in the evening. It blocks those times and I cannot get on. So it has really helped because honestly, I am not diligent enough when it comes to my phone. I do not have enough self-control to say no. So I had to put something in place. And honestly, and that's actually something I actually had in my notes here is intentionally making your life a little bit harder. And one of the things that I had mentioned was going from a flip phone, from a smartphone to a flip phone. I know several people who have done that.
Mhm.
And for me, I really want to do that, and I'm not there quite yet, but I want to find something to where I can still get on Instagram to post something. And I still have maps because I need my Google Maps. But
Yes.
but just to have
Yeah.
basically have a flip phone that it's for calling and messaging.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure how to do that quite yet, but that is something that I would love. And in the meantime, I have made this thing be as much as possible a phone call and text message. And I try to stay off the phone. And I know we've talked about this before too, but I also do not want my daughter to look back and remember, oh, my mom was always on her phone. I
Mhm.
just, and I don't want her to be raising my grandchildren
Yes.
with her always on her phone. And so I need to be an example in that. I mean, I just can't imagine what's going to be out by the time our kids have grown up. But
Right.
just like one car instead of two, or hand wash the dishes instead of using the dishwasher, or books. Oh, here's a big one. Books for children instead of screens. I am
Mm.
telling you, that has been one of the greatest. Oh, and actually I know you too, because you guys have made that change too.
Yeah,
But,
absolutely.
and here's another thing, choose your hard. It feels easier in the moment to put your children in front of screens, but what are they like when the screen goes off? It's bad news.
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of studies and stuff about brain development and all that. I mean, that's a whole nother topic, but just choose your hard. Train your children to be delightful and able to keep themselves entertained without a screen. And in the long run, they shall bring rest to your soul, like the Bible
Mhm.
says. So,
Yeah.
and another thing too is just stop thinking and start doing. And you kind of alluded to this earlier, but a lot of our hard around work is that we overthink it. It's
Mhm.
actually not that hard to go pick up the stick in the yard and put it in the burn pile. It's actually not that hard, but it's always like, oh, I'm in my church clothes, or I'm never, I forget about it. I'm not out front. And it's like, actually, if I just put it on my list and go do it, it's going to take me less than 5 minutes to do.
Yeah. Well,
So
Elizabeth
just,
Elliot always said, do the next thing. Just do the
yes,
next thing. And you were talking earlier about creating margin. I have found that when I am purposeful about doing the next thing during my day, I have that margin in the evening, which is really when I want it, because that's when we have the free time. That's when my husband's home. That's when we're spending time as a family. One other thing I want to mention, I heard a quote recently from Janice Johnson. I know you and I have been both gleaning from her recently. When we were talking about choosing your hard, she says we either experience the pain of regret or the pain of discipline. And she was talking about that in regards to this whole conversation of
right.
discipline and choosing your hard. And I thought that was great because either way, there is some pain. There is, there it requires something of us. But I'd much rather have the pain of discipline. Like I said earlier, I've really been trying to work on my health. So I've been getting up in the mornings and going walking. And sometimes I start my walk and I'm like, this is the last thing I want to be doing. I just want to crawl back in bed. But by the end of it, I'm so glad that I pushed through the pain of discipline, as opposed to if I would have laid in bed, I would have spent the whole day with, oh, I should have gotten up. My day's behind. I didn't get outside. Like, it is very real. It's one or the other there. And I mentioned it earlier, but you have it here in the notes. So I'm just going to quote it directly. 1 Corinthians 4:2 says, moreover, it is required in stewards that a man be found faithful. I want the Lord to find me faithful. I want God, whenever he chooses to return, I want him to find me diligently about my Father's business. I want to set that example for my children because I want that for their lives. I want to encourage my husband in that. And yeah, so and you had that verse here in Colossians. Do you want to share that?
Yeah. And just real quick about that,
Yeah.
the word that gets me in First Corinthians 4:2 is that it's required.
Mm, yeah.
Diligence is faithfulness, and it's required.
Mhm.
And so again, it just comes down to, and this is where there is no hack for diligence.
Yeah.
It comes down to just getting up and doing the thing.
Yes.
And
Yes.
the greatest thing about being a Christian is that we have uh, the strength of the Lord. I went through a season where I claimed and claimed and claimed and claimed Psalm 71:16. I will go in the strength of the Lord God, because we do not have the strength. How many times, especially, we come to the end of the day, we've had a long day and we've got to clean up from dinner. Choose your hard. Speaking of, there's the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. My back hurts so bad. I do not have the energy or the strength to clean up my kitchen right now. But tomorrow, me is going to have an easier day if I clean my kitchen right now. Lord, please give me the strength I need to just push through and to just get it done. We don't have to rely on ourselves. So when we say, oh man, I don't have diligence, no, we don't. But when we rely on Christ, we can have it. So,
Mhm.
and then at the end of the day, the verse that you mentioned, Colossians 3:23-24, there's a reward for just being diligent. And that's the awesome thing about God. God is awesome, but then he's just over the top awesome, because he says, hey, he's not just command, 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 do this, do this, do this, do this. No, he says, do this and I will bless you. And
Yeah.
even with diligence, there's a blessing. Colossians 3:23-24 says, and whatsoever you do it heartily as to the Lord and not unto men, knowing that of the Lord ye shall receive the reward of the inheritance, for ye serve the Lord Christ. And I think keeping that in mind, ye serve the Lord Christ. Diligence is not for us at the end of the day. Diligence is because we serve the Lord, our Savior. And look what he did for us. Don't you want to give your life for him? Do you want him to come back and find you sitting on your phone? Or do you want him to come back and find you being diligent in caring for your home and caring for your family and caring for your church family? There's no hack. You
Yeah.
just got to get up and do it.
Well, Sarah, this has been a good conversation. It's been an encouraging conversation. It's something that God has brought back to my attention in several different ways recently. And it's always good to revisit because, like you said, this isn't a one and done choice. This is a constant, Lord, help me every day to be a faithful steward, to be diligent. So thank you so much for joining me once again. It's been great, and I look forward to next time.